Tonight, we'll go back in time to seasons past when 22 men graced the rugged fields of yesterday, fighting for one more first down, one more yard gain, one final score that would bring victory after 60 minutes of battle of gridiron. Tonight, we'll explore the world of Gridiron Greats. Welcome to Gridiron Greats Football History and its Memorabilia on the Sports History Network in conjunction with Swick Enterprises, and we're live from the Southport, North Carolina home of Gridiron Greats magazine. I'm Bob Swick, publisher and editor of Gridiron Greats magazine, and I'll be your host for the show. Gridiron Greats is the only publication in America that focuses upon the history and memorabilia of the North American football game since its inception in 1869. We cover 150 plus years of football history and memorabilia. You can find us on the web at gridirongreatsmagazine.com. It's at this time I'd like to introduce my co-host. He's a senior contributing writer to Gridiron Greats magazine, a football memorabilia historian, specializing in pre-World War II items, in particular Red Grange, and also Seattle Seahawk items, in particular Steve Largent. He hails from Portland, Oregon, Mr. Joe Squires. Joe, welcome to the show this evening.
Captain, good to be back. Really good to be back. I start to get that itch, not talking hobby with you, in between shows, my friend.
We're in the off season now. We're with the unknown, even though the NFL chugs along 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, proving they will never be insignificant in the realm of the football world. I want to touch base real quick tonight before we get into a little free agency. I had a couple readers ask me about a Green Bay Packers publication that I briefly mentioned on the show and briefly mentioned in the magazine, and that's the Sport Focus Football Yearbook of the Green Bay Packers. And it was published from the years in 1968 through the 1977 season. And it was a end around to the Packers regular yearbook that is still being published and has been published since 1960. And the Sports Focus yearbook of the Packers and the editions that it published initially had articles on the Packers. It also had articles on University of Wisconsin football, and it also had articles on the Milwaukee Bucks football team and a few articles here and there on the Milwaukee Admirals, which was a International Hockey League team at that time. As it progressed in 1973 and 74, they basically went to all Packers public information in the yearbook, and they ceased publication. The last publication and the last issue was the 1977 issue, which was found here. For a brief period of time, they did publish other issues for other teams, including, believe it or not, the Jets, the Giants, the Redskins, the Vikings, and also the Lions. It never really gained a lot of popularity. It was interesting, several articles in each issue, pretty well written. I still like the regular Packers yearbook. The official publication of the Packers was very, very much in demand. But this has developed a small but loyal following in collecting the run. And I know of one gentleman who is trying to collect all of the actual Sports Focus football yearbooks of those years.
Wow.
And pretty interesting to see him, pretty interesting to find over both the internet and if you go to a show, whatever, to see some of those older issues. So anyways, I just wanted to touch base briefly on that. If anyone has any information on them or wants to know more about them, please feel free to contact me. And I will give you as much information as you request. As far as extra copies, I do have a 73 issue and a 76 issue available for sale. And again, contact me on those if you want it, or I'll be willing to trade for something you may have that is Packers related.
Brenda will obviously be happy to know you're collecting periodicals again.
She is. They take up so little space up here in the man
They,
cave.
they
As you
smell
see
amazing.
behind me, I could
Yeah.
probably fill 4 of these bookcases with ease, with publications, so on and so forth.
I just remember when you moved from Wallingford, you sent out little care packages to a lot of us, and that's where,
Well,
like, my avatar on on VFC, hint hint, is one of your first periodicals that you wrote.
Football Times, and
Yeah.
that was the actual mailing envelope of Football Times. So that's pretty rare. And if you got it graded, I would assume it would probably be up to 6 figures, if not more, that somebody would want to pay for it. And
I know.
and another side note, speaking of publications, the fulfillment company I was using to mail out the back issues of Gridiron Greats has basically closed
Oh,
for a variety of reasons. So I've gotten the few remaining copies out of the fulfillment company of the old issues of Gridiron Greats. So if anybody's looking for any, please let me know. They're very limited in quantity. There are several issues that are completely sold out at this time,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'll try to help you. I don't know if
What is that?
anybody saw.
How
Uh,
much extra is it for you to autograph
I would.
a
I'd be
GG
willing.
before you send it out? Oh,
I'd be willing to autograph them. No extra charge.
no
However,
extra charge.
if you wanted to autograph them, there would be an extra charge because I'd have to pay the postage to get to Portland, I mean, to Oregon and back.
Yeah, but I mean, I mean, any premium if you want a personalized inscription, like
$500 to $1,000.
there's a
I
there's
don't
a
know.
vertical, there's a vertical here, Bob. I'm telling you.
Recently on eBay, I was shocked to see, and it was too late when I saw them. Someone auctioned off issues 2 to 19 for $5 each of Gridiron
Wow,
Greats magazine. They were
wow,
scoffed up. I wanted to email the person selling them saying that issues 2, 3, and 4, actually 1, 2, 3, and 4 are beyond rare.
yeah.
And to see them at $5 was very sad to me.
Mm.
See
Well,
how,
they didn't know what they had, obviously.
right. And they were all bought. I don't know who bought them. It's been pretty quiet. So hopefully it's a Gridiron Greats
So,
subscriber who's trying to fill in their back issues.
yeah, if you know, you know. If you knew what you had there, I think I forgot to mention, by the way, you were a a guest host on with Darren Hayes
Correct.
a couple
Correct.
weeks ago, talking about the something that's very foreign to you. So it's nice to see you stretching out your hobby knowledge and talking about the Green Bay Packers on Darren's show.
And the 1936 championship, I did show a few of my diamond match covers of the
Oh,
Packers
it is.
and a reprint picture of the 36 championship team. Actually, that was a pretty cool show. And what I found interesting was it's very different being on the other side of the screen,
Yeah,
being interviewed.
yeah.
So I really had to take a step back there and you know,
That's right.
enjoy it more than
Yeah.
anything else. So,
He asked me to speak about the 1945 Cleveland Rams,
okay.
which I knew about, but I did quite a bit of research for the for the show, and it was interesting what you find out. And what I really found out was that in early '45, the Rams drafted Tom Fears
Yep.
uh, and and Elroy Hirsch, and both of them decided to wait a couple years, go back to college and
Yep.
or play in the AAFL. And so the Rams won the championship in 1945, beating the Redskins. But if they would have had 2 future Hall of Famers in their backfield, think about how they would have done. It was just cool, and I totally agree with you. Uh, it's a different to be a guest versus
Right.
yeah,
The actual part of the show or the show itself. So
yeah.
very different, very different. I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it. I've been on there. I'm pretty sure I was on Darren's show a couple other times.
Mm,
I've pretty much lost count of the different things I've done over the years. I really got to sit back and think about it because people have asked me what have you written, and it's like I I've written a lot. I don't remember it all, but I
Yeah.
should start documenting more of it at the same time. I
Yes.
remember I wrote in between Football Times and Gridiron Greats for an online website called Sports Nuts, and I did the football side of it. And I do remember I was promised to be paid in shares of stock in the website, and that was, I look back at it and I'm saying to myself, boy, I must have been desperate to write for accepting that, because they went under within 2 years and everything got lost or whatever. But I still had copies of a lot of my
Yeah.
my articles I wrote for them on
Yeah.
whatever.
And you still have those shares.
Oh yeah, they're worth a lot. I'll tell you, they're providing us with a very pleasant retirement
the
and
the
stuff.
life to which Brenda's grown accustomed. I like it, but
So,
yeah.
all
Um,
right, I'm gonna pick on you for a few minutes. Your
uh,
Seahawks really made some incredible, expensive moves in the free agency.
yeah,
Exists 24/7 right now.
yeah, it does. And you and I were talking before the show just about how free agency has made loyalty a thing of the past. But I mean, I just keep remembering Bill Walsh, telling Joe Montana and Jerry Rice, when you lose it, when you're no longer a key player, we will trade you, and
Right,
he did, and that was one of the first things I remember. I forget what year it happened. Where Montana went on to the Chiefs. I mean,
yep,
wasn't it like 90, 90? Anyways, but seeing him in a Chiefs jersey was just like, wow. And then obviously Jerry Rice moving on, also. But it just seems to happen now a lot more, and it's tough because the Seahawks released Tyler Lockett. He had I forget what it was, you know, $17 million in salary.
yep,
And
yep,
last year I think he had 500-600 yards receiving. He'd lost his step, but it's also tough because Tyler Lockett was a huge part of the team for years. He's the guy who won the winning touchdown in 2013 to send the Seahawks to the Super Bowl over the Packers. Um,
yep,
he had that in the Super Bowl, that we won. He had that weird, catch, near the end zone right before we ran the slant pass. So DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett was released. I think DK Metcalf, our star wide receiver, took that personally, asked for a trade, traded him. We brought in Cooper Kupp, who I'm a huge fan of. I think he's pretty classy.
yep,
Released Geno, we traded him, you know, and then we brought in Sam Darnold. I mean,
yep.
same. I don't know, and I guess time will tell. We got a guy who's 7 years younger than Geno, but about the same stats. Sam Darnold, has had one good season. That was last year.
Right,
And
right.
other than that, seems pretty mediocre.
Well, to me, looking at what was paid out this year for what I think were some mediocre players, I'm just shocked by it. And it is what it is. It's what the NFL is. It's basically a recycled league now. You're
Yeah,
going to go from one team to another team to another team. The players that actually play for a team for a long period of time or their entire career with one team is pretty much over.
yeah,
And there is, not much loyalty one way or the other. It's rent a player and that's it.
which is
So
tough. I think like Larry Fitzgerald is probably the last player I can think
right,
of that played his entire career at a place and was allowed to retire with grace.
yeah, Mr. Cardinal. I mean, if anybody.
Mr.
So
Cardinal, class act. I mean, name a player. You keep track of this a lot better than I do. But for the Packers, name a player for the Packers who was drafted and played their entire career.
yeah, I mean it's been a long time since we've had a pure player that's just played every season for him. We obviously Favre never did it. Rodgers never did it. I don't
Yeah,
know why Rodgers is being talked about as a new savior for some teams. I have no clue why whatsoever. I
ah,
mean, he's really lost his step. But it's the NFL today. If I got a chance to make an extra 25 million for one season, and if I get injured in one game, so big deal. I got an
yeah.
insurance policy on me, and that's it. Simple.
Yeah.
you know?
Just another measly 25 mil.
That's right. That's right.
These numbers are staggering. Sam Darnold,
Yeah,
3 years, $100 million.
yeah, that's just that I don't even want to get into it. It's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It's just like what who was it? Kirk Cousins got with the Falcons for doing nothing whatsoever. He's a backup quarterback now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why is the backup quarterback getting 25 million a year is besides me.
Well, when your primary quarterback gets hurt and the backup has to step in, that's when the fans start to care.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, our special guest is here, and we're going to move to him now.
You guys are going to love this.
Our special guest tonight is the senior contributing writer to Gridiron Greats magazine, a football, memorabilia, and card collector and historian that has one of the most advanced collections in the country.
Absolutely.
Of pre-World War II items, in particular of the 1925 Pottsville Maroons.
Oof.
I'd like to welcome to the show this evening a good friend of Gridiron Greats magazine and of the podcast, Mr. Jeff Payne. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, how you doing? It's great
JP.
to be here.
You
Good
seem
to
like
see
you're
ya.
on the beach, Jeff, and you were lucky enough to call us in tonight. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I
Taking time
wish.
out of your tropical schedule there. So.
Yep. Undo one more button
California
on
dream.
that. Undo one more button on that shirt, Jeff, and it'll really look like you're on the beach.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
And by the way, add to Jeff's resume, co-host, stand-in co-host from time to time too.
That's true.
I love it when you do this show. I love going back and listening.
It's fun. I appreciate you letting me fill your shoes, Joe, for a bit.
Oh, whatever.
It's awesome.
You do a great job. You're such an icon in the hobby. I mean, your collection, as Bob mentioned, I mean, is incredible. The caveat to that Pottsville Maroons collection of yours, the postcards, it is the only complete one, known. So that's a mountain you climbed.
That's incredible.
It was a mountain, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and 100th year anniversary, right? This is the year.
Yeah.
So they're having a big celebration up in Pottsville in August. I'm planning to go up there, and some of the other VSCers are going to make a road show of it, we think, and maybe do a tour of Yingling's Brewery, hit the Historical Society. Steve Wolf's in charge of pulling it together, but it might be a fun weekend. Looking forward to it.
That'll be cool. Steve's great. I
Cool.
love him.
Yeah, he is awesome.
Yeah. And I love how we're probably getting off topic here, but I also love how you tend to take a topic and just do an absolute deep dive. Your Pottsville Maroon thread on VFC, which I mean we'll get to here shortly, was just one of the most well-read, just tracking where each postcard came from, who owned it. I mean, and putting a schedule together of this. It was just that is such a deep dive on something. I can't even tell you. It's just incredible. I tip my hat to you, man.
Thanks. That was so much fun. That was probably my favorite all-time article in Gridiron Greats that I've written.
Totally.
And it was so much fun to pull that together and research all that stuff. So
yeah.
It was great, to say the least. Well, Jeff, let's lead off, and we're going to ask you a couple questions here. What is actually VFC, and why is it needed in our football card and memorabilia hobby?
Awesome question. So for those that don't yet know, VFC stands for Vintage Football Community. VFC is a private online community of, I always say, football hobbyists, researchers, and authors who are passionate about the history of football and its memorabilia.
Yep.
And we are 6+ years old at this point. We have 167 members, not that I'm counting. And those members generate, on average, somewhere between 25 and 35,000 page views a month on the site.
Wow.
Start 50 to 100 new threads on average each month. And just to give you an idea of what's grown over 6 years, our most popular category, and we'll talk categories later, is called All Things Football. It's kind of a general topic about the hobby. We've had 58,000 posts in its history and 1,400 new threads started in the 6-year period, just in that category alone.
Wow.
So,
wow.
It's so far so good. But I want it to be more than a hobby board. I called it community for a reason, because I really want it to be a home. and we'll talk more about that and what the hobby needs here in a second.
That's the second teaser you've laid out there for
yeah,
future.
it's all right. You know, keep people involved, right?
Yeah,
Engaged.
stay till the end of the show.
Yeah. But I want it to be a community. I mean, to me, that means more than just, you know, we're showing sports cards, right? I mean, to me, a community is, you know, people that are enthusiastic about a topic or a subject or something, who really enjoy each other's company. They like to share their knowledge. They want to help each other.
Yeah.
And they just celebrate each other when they're, you know, successful in the hobby. And so we do lots of community types of things. As you all know, being members, we do fantasy football every year. This was the first year we had 2 leagues, which was awesome. So we built up to where we have 2 full leagues in VFC. We always do playoff pools for the NFL. Of course, we do the classic Secret Santa football gift exchange every holiday. I love that. It's probably my favorite event we do on VFC. It's so much fun. Hold up pizza dinner at the National Sports Collectors Convention every year, which is a lot of fun. Shout out to the Collectors Connection that sponsors that every year. So give Scott and Brian some props. They're awesome, and they always support us, which is great. And then just meet up at regional and local shows, gift things to each other. You know, it's becoming a true community, which is what I really like about it, right?
Yeah.
Bob, you asked about why VFC. Why does it exist? Why is it needed? I personally think it fills a hole in our hobby. VFC came out of getting frustrated, quite honestly, with some of the other forums that are out there. You know, many of us are involved in or members of private forums, public forums, you know, other things out there. But what I observed over time, and you know, I've been back in the hobby now for about 16 years, so it's been a while. First and foremost, most of the hobbies or forums out there are baseball focused forums, right?
Totally.
Right.
I always liken it to, you know, they usually have one category for football stuff, right? So we get this little tiny spot. And I always liken that to be like, it's like we're renting a room in a house. Like, we don't own the house. It's not our house. We rented a room. We kind of come and go, but you know, it's not our house, right? It's not our home.
We're not making the decisions. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not all about football. Like I like other, you know, sports. I like to see, you know, T206s and other things. That's not what I collect, but I enjoy that. But it's not ours. It's not our home. And there really isn't a home for football collectors. You know, you've got Facebook groups and things like that, but they're not structured in categories, and they don't archive information in a way that it's kind of sustainable and always there for you, and you can search for and find things. Those are fine. I'm a member of some of those, but they're not structured in kind of a forum. And so that's one challenge. The second challenge is that, you know, and maybe it's because they're so baseball focused, the football content and kind of engagement is pretty bad on those forums, right? It's pretty anemic. You just can't get enough going. And for a long time, I thought that meant, well, football people just don't want to share. And maybe that means that you could never have a football forum. We're not big enough. There's not enough people. People don't want to collect and share. And if we started a forum, it would just be crickets, right? Nobody would post anything, and that would be really depressing. And we all know those forums out there that nobody ever posts anything on, right? They're just empty. And so there's not a lot of engagement, not a lot of participation in those other forums that are more baseball focused. I've changed my tune on why, actually, since VFC has gotten off the ground. We can talk about that later. It's my third tee up. But the last one was these forums, they just have a lot of drama on them. And you all know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
It's just people fighting with each other, taking jabs at each other, you know, criticizing people and the way they collect. And I don't know about you guys, but the hobby, to me, it's supposed to be something that you enjoy.
It's supposed to be fun, enjoyable.
It's supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be something that stresses you out, makes you angry, makes you frustrated.
Good point, Jeff. And I just want to interject this while you're saying it, while it's on my mind. The one thing that always bothered me when the explosion of cards started was a lot of older, I shouldn't say it in this manner, but older, more vintage collectors resented the new collectors coming in, collecting the 89 Pro Set, the 89 Score, the 90,
Yeah.
91
Yeah.
Pacific, so on and so
Yeah.
forth. And I said to myself, hey,
Yeah.
let them collect what they
Yeah.
want
what
to
they want.
collect. They're
Exactly.
seeing the fun of opening packs. They're opening up
Yeah.
and making sets. Let
And
them
don't be negative about it. Don't be negative about it. And don't
Yeah.
crap on what somebody collects.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
let them collect the sets. So maybe one day they come to one of us and say, hey, what's a 94, what's a 1984 Tops football card like? What's
Mhm.
1984
number,
Fleer
yeah,
in action?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Explain it to me. And
Yeah.
totally.
what blows
It's-
my mind now, doing shows and at my age, in 2025, I got younger guys pick up a card off my table
mm,
and they have no clue whatsoever what they're looking at. And then I
Mhm.
try to explain to them what it is, and they say, oh, wow, I want to buy that card because I want to own a card like that I've never seen before. I have no concept of what it is.
Yeah.
And that's how new collecting starts.
yeah, totally agree.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
And you know, all the hobby drama and the stuff you're mentioning drives me crazy too.
Yeah.
I don't understand it, but it is frustrating too, because it's hard to kind of engage in forums that are like that. And actually the straw that broke the back for me, as you all know, about 6.5 years ago, we were part of a private board where I
yeah,
actually met you
yeah,
guys.
Let's talk sports cards.
And
LTS. Yeah.
yeah, and there was a huge blow up. You all
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
It was massive.
Yeah.
And it hit me pretty hard because I'd spent 6 years trying to build up the football category. I'd invested a lot of time and effort
Yeah.
in threads and trying to build up content. And all of a sudden it felt like this thing was just falling apart. And I had no
Yeah.
control over it. It
And
was
no fault of ours. It was just, I didn't even know there was this crap going on. All of a sudden, I'm
I
told,
know.
it's like, you know, I got calls from friends who departed LTS and like,
Mhm.
stop posting there, leave there. We're trying to
Yeah.
punish that. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I
Yeah.
like it there. You know, wait a minute.
I know it was crazy. And the worst part for me was I was helping the chief mod do some of the website stuff because he wasn't technical. There weren't a lot of people on that site that were technical. And so for years I had helped out just to fix stuff if they had problems or something wasn't working. I guess whoever was originally doing that had left or something. And so I got to know him pretty well. He was at the epicenter of this whole thing. And, you know, it was bad enough what was being like happening on the board in front of all the members, but he sent me some text messages and PMs that he got from some of these people.
Oh boy.
You would not believe what some of these people said to him in private. And it really hit me hard because I was like, this isn't
Wow.
the hobby. This isn't like what I'm, you know, here to enjoy. And I grinded on that for about 24 hours. And I said, you know what? I think I'm done with this place. I hate to say it. I spent 6 years here. It's time. It's time. Kurt Robinson, you all know Kurt.
Yeah.
Shout out to
Yeah.
Kurt. Kurt was the person who used to say to me, we used to talk about these problems on these boards. We used to talk about stuff. And he would always say, Jeff, you need to start a football board. And I'd be like, Kurt, there's not enough people. There's no way we're getting this off. He'd go, you need to start it. You build it. People will come. We can pull everybody in and we can get this going.
Well,
So
Jeff,
after grinding on it,
you're also a really
Go ahead.
prolific poster. Your knowledge is great, and people admire that. So I mean, I agree. Good for Kurt for recognizing it. I mean, I was on, you know, LTS since 2008. I
yeah,
mean,
you were early.
so I mean, and whatever, you'd been on for 6 years. So, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
you know, I'm a decade in. You had as many posts as I did, if I remember correctly. You were
Yeah, wow.
posting a lot, and it was good stuff. You know, so
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
yeah. So I agree.
Well,
It took somebody like you to start it. That's a good call.
Well, and kudos to all you guys. I mean, you know, shout out to other people that, because when I got back in the hobby, I was just there to complete my, you know, childhood sets, like a lot of us were, right? And, you know, and so it wasn't until I started getting on the boards, and John Spano was the one that
Oh,
recommended
Spano,
me
Yeah.
into LTS,
Yeah.
which was cool because there I met you guys, I met Kirk, you know, obviously Mike Blaisdell, Mike Morin, Todd Tobias, McKee, you know, all those people. There's so many, you can leave them out, but they all were just so
you,
helpful.
name dropping, comes on the show,
right?
Bob, and name drops. Boy, oh boy.
Well, these are hobby icons that I feel like,
without a doubt, yeah.
you know, we're all standing on the, you know, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants with all you guys and the knowledge that you all brought in.
I say with great pride, everything I know about a lot of these vintage sets, I learned from like an Andy Becker or Spano or
Becker. It's
Bob.
another one.
I mean, I can remember getting a call from Becker
Mhm.
once, you know, when they started their BST, and he's like, I've got some, you know, I don't remember what it was, but I think it was the Pottsville Maroons. He had some, you know, and he's like, I wanted to offer them to you. And it was like I want to say some Star Player candies, but he's like, I'm like, I've never heard of them. You know, do I need them? He's like, Joe, these are rare. Trust me, these are rare. You're going to want a couple.
Yes, Joe, you need them. So.
Yeah. And I bought, you know, half a dozen. And then I thought about it for about 3 days, and I called him back. I'm like, all right, I'll take the rest. He's like, oh, they're gone, Joe. Oh, dude, those are gone. And I'm like, oh boy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of noodled on it, and I think you all know that you all were the first members, right? You all know that.
I went and looked. I went and looked just out of curiosity the date that I joined, because I don't know when you started it, but I think I was one of the first, but I don't know. Actually, I think it might have taken me a week to figure out password. 9/23/2018 is when I joined.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I invited you earlier than that, but you were slow, Joe.
I was. Yeah, I will admit.
Bob was probably on like immediately, but I think I even pinged you. I'm like, Joe, hello.
You did. You have a good memory. I was trying to sweep that under the rug there, Jeff, but you got it.
Well, only because I want to show you all if I could share. Can I share?
Absolutely.
Yeah, just for a second. Let me share quick. I wanted to show you the text
Jeff,
messages.
our normal producer who would do all the sharing is on vacation this week.
Yeah, so I blacked out the stuff that's sensitive, but this was the message
2018.
Yeah, you guys. Okay. I said August 25th. I sent you guys and Todd. Right, you were my first message. This was the day before I did it. I said I'm thinking of starting a football forum for those who want to talk shop without the drama and undercurrent of some of these other boards. Right. So I posted that one, and then I spent 24 hours like scribbling out notes, coming up with categories, prototyping something, you know, writing down rules, trying to figure out how are we going to get something off the ground from nothing. And then the next day, let me show you this one, then we'll jump back to whatever. Wow. I sent you guys this after I stood it up. Gonna send you all invitation to join VFC. That was when I came up with the name. You can check it out. And then I asked you for your email addresses so I could send it to the right place. And so I sent invites to you guys on August 26th of 2018.
August 26th. I joined September 23rd. I'm so sorry, Jeff.
Actually, that was pretty good, Joe. That was only a month.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Thanks, Bob.
Well, you're busy with life. I mean, everybody's busy.
No, it was I just want you guys to get in there.
So family.
So that's kind of how it came about and what drove it. It was really to give us in the hobby a home, right? Somewhere that we can call our own. It's our own house, right? We don't have to rent a room anymore. We can just talk about football. So,
and I truly appreciate that because, again, I only like football in reality. I mean, even though I do follow a little, I watch other sports or whatever, I have really no interest in collecting other sports stuff.
Yeah.
The other sports have become so irrational to me. It's not even funny. I mean, I kid a lot of people now saying I want to do axe throwing greats as a new magazine and go to these different axe throwing bars and places, including the one in downtown Southport, and interview the people that throw and say what makes them throw, and go to some old timers' homes and say, I heard you threw axes at people over the years. Is that a guide?
Why'd you do that?
Get Richie Bartlett to put together a new card set for it, or
there you go. Yeah.
The axes or whatever. But but again, getting back to what you're doing is something that was definitely needed in the hobby, and the success of it has to me been been phenomenal. And again, if, people watching this say, well, it's only 167 people. So I tell people, well, in Elks lodges, there's over 900 people. You're lucky you got 40 or 50 people doing anything out of the 900 people that are supposedly members. So in a way, we do echo that to a certain degree, but the amount of information in this group it's like a virtual history tour every time you log in, because you never know.
Small but mighty.
Yeah.
Yeah, good example. So I went back 2 years after starting VFC, because I was like, I know all the stats on VFC, and I'm like, well, I know how many threads we started. I wonder how many threads have been started on the other boards in that period of time.
Okay.
And I went back to some private boards. I went back to some public boards.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, boards like Net 54, they have 10, 20,000 members. Of course, small fraction of those are football people. LTS is much bigger than we are. Well, they're a little bigger than we are now. We're catching them quickly. But would you believe that 5 years in, my last post on LTS was still on the first page of the football category.
Gosh.
5 years.
Yeah, I believe it.
So they were averaging about 10 threads a year.
Yeah.
After we all kind of moved our home.
Yeah.
And Net 54 was even worse. Like
it's always been.
Yeah, it's just, it's not a home for football. So
no.
That's mostly baseball anyway. So that's tough to measure them one way or the other.
One of the questions, that was kicked around with us is, has it been a success? And it sounds like the metrics you're throwing out have been a success. And the metrics are one thing, but Jeff, on the other end of that coin is, the social things, the friendships that have come out of it. I mean, I tell people all the time, it's like I've stayed at people's houses. I've gone on vacations with people I met through the hobby. The guy who lived in Australia, we spent a week at his house and then invited him to our place. I mean, I can't organize that kind of stuff. I mean, and it's amazing that we can get together for pizza, at a national and a dinner, and it's impressive. It's more than just a hobby board. It's it's friendships over a commonality. It's amazing.
And it's all the members, right? I mean, I always look at it as I'm just shepherding the site. It's all the members board. The members make it or break it, because we need everybody to help. We need everybody to share. We need everybody to enforce the rules, right? So that we're all living up to what we agreed to do. And I think we do a great job of that. I think everybody pitches in. It self-governs itself, knock on wood, right? In 6.5 years, I've only locked 2 threads in 6.5 years, which is pretty freaking good. My biggest worry.
That is very good.
Seriously. Yeah, my biggest worry was that, there would be drama that pops up. And of course that could happen, right? Nobody can predict that, but it's been pretty much drama free. And I think there's some reasons for that, that I can talk about. But also, though, it's very member led. Like, members drive what we talk about, what we, focus on. Members make suggestions about changes. Things have evolved at VFC over time based on member feedback. And I think that's also it. I want people to feel like they own it, right? Because if they own it, then they're going to be vested in it and they're going to participate. If it's somebody else's, they're not going to really do that, right?
I had on the previous board, I mean, that's a testament to what you've done, the culture you've built. One of the things I wanted to add is, when you're talking about, this is invite only. I mean, I don't know how many people have just applied. I don't think there is on the front page. I don't think there is an apply here, but it's invitation only. There has to be a resume. You have to be recommended by a member, and it's the expectation is that member is vouching for that person when you bring them in.
Yes.
So you tend to bring in a better group of people.
You do. Although if I meet somebody and they seem to, be into the history of football, I pitch VSC to them, even if I don't know them. Because I figure, like, if somebody's really into it, and I always share the rules with people and I get them to say, yep, I agree to those rules. I'm kind of looking for somebody to go, this is freaking awesome. That's what I want to hear, right? Like, I can't believe there's a home for us now. I've been looking for this for 20 years. I love when I get those comments because I know that person's going to engage, right? And so,
sure.
I'm not, one thing that I did not like about some of the private boards was it almost felt like they were trying to make it exclusive. Like this is
Right,
some special exclusive club and you have to jump through all these hurdles to be a member. And I'm just like, look, if you're into football and you'll commit to following the rules and jump in and behave yourself, you're in, right? That's the criteria. And so far, I was worried maybe that would, result in some problems, but so far it has not.
Yeah.
And
You can
one
tell
is,
people are cool, especially if they're like a Seahawk fan or something. Then
well,
they're
yeah, of course. Yeah.
just class.
That's they're right in. They don't even have to agree to the rules. They're just
I,
right.
I think
Thanks for playing along, by the way. I'm curious. I mean, I had some run-ins on the previous board, and I was just always, like, we can do better than this, people. I mean, there should be no drama. One of the questions I wanted to ask you, it's not on our script, was, how much drama has there been behind the scenes? Because, I know a lot of ex mods, from LTS, et cetera. And they're like, the members only see about 10% of the BS that goes on.
Yeah, yes. I talked to one of those former mods just over the holiday break, and we were laughing about, because I remember when he was mod, I met with him for dinner one time, and we were just talking about the board, and he just said, Jeff, he said, if you know what I deal with behind the scenes, he goes, don't ever volunteer to be the chief mod. And I was like, whoa, because you didn't see any of that, right? Or very infrequently. We're pretty drama free. So I will say that people always ask, do people get kicked off of VFC? I have kicked people off for not posting, right? We do have a posting requirement. We can talk about the rules. They have been relaxed over time for a specific reason that I can talk about. But one of the worries I had up front was, I needed people to all participate and help get this thing off the ground. Right. So it was, let's start with this. It's going to be a little controversial. Probably have some people that read it and go, I don't know if I want to commit to that. It's fine. But also it gave me something to ask people, hey, where you been for a year, right? Like, where'd you disappear to? And I give people many chances. I'm not looking to kick people off, but I do not like people who are information hoarders that sit and collect information and never share what they know. Right? We all know them. I call them information hoarders. And I think it's a bad strategy in the hobby. And I've had this conversation with some of these people. I've said, like, what's your plan here? Right? Okay, I get if you know more than somebody about something, if something comes up at auction, maybe you get it cheaper because you know more, you know what it is, other people don't. I get that short-term strategy. Who are you going to sell these things to? Nobody knows what they are. There's no demand for what you have. Because you don't ever tell anybody about any of this stuff. It's not written down. The grading companies don't know it. What's your end game here, right? They don't have an end game.
And to me, that's one of the biggest problems in the football hobby, card and memorabilia hobby, is the lack of information. A lot of obscure sets, obscure pieces of memorabilia from games, from years, so on and so forth. And I echo what you're saying, Jeff. I say to a lot of these guys, okay, when you go to sell it, you feel it's worth X amount of dollars. Well, guess what?
You're going to be disappointed.
Worthless.
It's supply and demand. People forget that. Like everybody says, this is so rare. This is so rare.
What it is.
Yeah, but if nobody knows what it is or nobody likes it, it ain't selling. It could be a one of one and nobody's buying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I do look for the lurkers. I look for the people who don't share. I give them plenty of chances, but at some point I just say, you know what, maybe this person needs to go away. I've had two people that, occasionally I will send a PM to somebody and say, can you tone it down in this thread? I think you're getting a little close to the line. Let's not start a fire here. And most people are like, yeah, you're right. Sorry. I maybe pushed it a little too far. I'll back off. I had two people get pissed off that I said that, and both said, well, then I don't want to be here anymore. And then I said, bye, and they were gone. I deleted them immediately. you know,
Wow.
because you gotta behave, right? We don't need
Yeah.
problems. And,
What were the
and if
two?
you get pissy because somebody says, hey, you know, calm down a little bit, this is a little over the edge, no, you're probably not gonna behave, right?
Yeah. What were the two threads you locked down? I remember one. I don't remember the second.
I don't even remember what they were. Yeah, I don't remember. I mean, they
We're
weren't
not-
horrible, but they got to the point where it was, you know, getting a little bit edgy.
So it sounds successful. I mean, like I said, it's one of the first sites I visit. You know, in the morning, I'll check it out a couple
Thank
times,
you.
you know, a day. And I love your monthly email summaries. I really adore. You know, I read those top and bottom. I know that's silly, but
Nice.
top posters, topics, things coming up, a calendar. I think you do a
Yep.
really good job with that.
Thank you. Well, that's part of my content strategy. So, you know, in my company that I run, my software company, 7 years ago, we bought a company that runs software conferences and online communities. And just running those businesses, I learned a lot about what drives content-oriented businesses, right? Like, how do you make this all work? And the thing I learned is that it's all about content. Like, if you have good talks at events, conferences, that attracts people to attend because they want to hear good talks. If you attract people, then sponsors want to sponsor because they want access to the people. So you make money. Then you can take that money, feed it back around to better content. And if you get that loop going, then you can grow events, right? And you can grow online communities. It's all about the content, though. That's the piece. If you try to start with the other pieces, you know, try to attract people to an event with no content, they won't come. If you try to attract sponsors to an event that nobody signed up for, they won't come. It's all about content. So a VFC, my thought was we have to put in place rules and expectations that drive content creation. Because if we do that, then everything else will work. Right? We'll get referrals, people will join, people won't want to leave, they'll know they need to participate, they'll participate, it feeds on itself.
Yeah.
So
Good
that's been kind of the strategy for how it all works.
Yeah. I like that. Well, I was curious who your top posters are. You and Steve, obviously. You know, you're
Yeah, I don't put myself in that category.
Yeah, you're very positive. I love how you respond to a lot of threads. You're encouraging. You're a cheerleader, and it shows. That positivity is contagious, as I say. But it's you know, Steve, you and Steve are the 20,000. You're the Jerry Rice. Mike Driscoll, 11K. I mean, you know, friend of the show, good poster. Ken Marks, Eric Stang,
awesome.
7,000. Dave Peters, 6,000, and then me, I must have just edged out Rev Mike Moran because he and I are both 4,000.
Yeah, no, that's impressive. Yeah, you know, and to your point about the newsletter and the cheerleading, one is I want to set a good example. You know, one thing that I learned on some of these other boards was like I was always looking at people trying to figure out like why aren't they posting? Like what's the problem, right? Because I'm trying to figure out, well, how do I change this? Well, one thing is if you post something and nobody responds, it just sits there.
Yeah.
You might go, oh, okay, nobody liked that. You post something else, nobody responds.
Yep.
You'll probably do that 2 times, 3 times. If you don't get any engagement, you're probably starting to think, well, maybe these people just don't like what I collect. Right? They don't like this. There's no interest here. And people just drift off.
You're spot on.
So
throwing a birthday party and no one comes. You know,
and I don't want people to feel like that. So I try to go through and not just, you know, put a nudge in or a like, but just try to look at something and figure out what is great about it or interesting or cool that I could say, hey, that's really nice, Richie, for instance. You know, I really like X about it. And also I'm just trying to set a good example. We want everybody to help everybody, right? Support everyone. Whatever they like, we should like. And I don't collect it all, but I can appreciate it all. You know?
And like we were saying previously, you know, don't crap on it. Like 89, you know, whatever you want to say. I mean, 1989 Pacific, Steve Largent. No, that's a bad example. So that's very admired. But I mean, you know, just be positive. I mean, be curious.
Exactly.
Just like, wow, tell me more about that. I don't know that. And I think you're doing a great job with that.
Cool. Well, you're
Uh,
touching on something that got added to the site. Originally we had 5 categories that, because one thing is one category wasn't enough. We know that from the baseball,
mhm.
forums. You couldn't really get engagement going if there was one category and it was
Yeah.
baseball oriented. But we've also been on forums where there's a million categories. And I
Yeah.
kind of feel like I look at that and I'm like, gosh, I don't even know where to put this. So
Yeah.
maybe I just won't post it, right? So I was like, how do I have enough categories where people can figure out where to put stuff? They're not intimidated, but we don't have so many that people get intimidated. So I started with 5. We had community news and events, which is just like all things about VFC, welcoming new members, talking about upcoming events, showing pictures from get-togethers or card shows or whatever, just anything to do with the community. All things football collecting. That's just general, what have you picked up recently? Show cards A to Z. That thread's been going for 6 years, which is crazy. We've had that on other boards. I've never had one that went for like 6 years.
1,158 threads. It's
Yeah.
it's more than the next 2 combined. I
Yes,
just went to the main page.
Yeah, it's huge. Pre-war football, that's for, the folks that are into the pre-World War II, post-war football, and, football sports talk. Those were the original 5. And I was and members would suggest new categories, and I'd be like, no, we don't need new categories. We don't need new categories. But over time, we added 3 based on feedback. The first one was social chatter. So some members came and said, they were like, we want to talk about X. I'm like, well, that's not football. This is all about football. And they're like, look, if we're trying to build community, we want people to engage. People want to talk with their friends about other things, like problems they're having, or just sharing pictures of their family, or talking about whatever. We want, the ability to talk about things. And I was like, that's a good point, right? This is a football board. We want the conversation to be mostly football. But we have other things going on in our lives. And if this is a community, you should be free to talk about whatever. So we created social chatter, which has been hugely popular. I think it's the 3rd. Yeah, it has the 3rd most posts since VFC started, and it didn't start at the beginning. The second one was a buy-sell trade.
BST.
So I didn't put a BST in it initially. And the thought was, I don't want this to devolve into a site like a Facebook group where just people are just like, I'm selling this, I'm buying this, bid on this. Let's do, bid. Because again, I was trying to make it a community, not a, just about cards or just about stuff we're buying and selling.
Yeah.
And so for a while I resisted that. But again, members, kept showing up and saying, look, we gift things to each other, right? But those are going to be things that aren't worth usually a lot of money, right? Because you're not going to gift something typically that's worth thousands of dollars. That wouldn't make sense to do. And I would never expect to get a gift like that. But, we might want to buy and sell from each other. We might want to trade with each other. We might give each other better deals, right? Like, why don't we position this as like, use BFC as your first, sell to your friends, sell to the community, give it a good home, right? And buy and sell, set it up ideally as this is your first place you try. If it doesn't work here, then you send it out to the community or an auction house or whatever. And I just said, as long as people behave themselves, we can do that. My biggest worry was drama, right? I got this card. It wasn't what I expected. I wanted to return it. The person didn't let me return it. And I'm dealing with all these, moderating all these failed transactions was my biggest worry. That hasn't happened, knock on wood, yet.
Yeah.
There's been a few little issues, but nothing major, right?
And some things I've seen torpedo other BSTs are people putting that, $3 card up and running it as an auction style, and you're like, dude, this shit doesn't even belong on this it doesn't belong on eBay, much less our BST. Nobody cares about a PSA 6, Marcus Allen, 1985, you've also done a good job. It's not even in the rules of engagement. I just looked, but you've done a good job of making sure it's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and that's self-moderated. I don't really look at any of that stuff. Well, I look at it all, but I don't really tell people what to post. I think people know what this community is all about. The third area, and this is the biggie, I think, is the modern football category.
Yeah.
So, originally I said, VFC stands for it's only vintage, it's only football, and it's a community. Well, now I sort of broke that, sort of. But my thinking was this: started to have members saying, hey, some of us have more modern stuff. If you call 90s or, cards from the aughts modern, it's debatable. Talk about that in a second. But we'd like to post some of that stuff too. Like, why don't we have a place we can put that stuff? And, initially I was pushing back. I was like, look, this is all about vintage. And somebody said to me, and I can't remember who it was, they said, what's vintage to you
Right.
might not be vintage to me.
Right.
Because if you think about it, we all think about what we collected as a kid to be, you might not call it's your vintage, right? Like for you, Bob, it's 65 tops, tall boys,
Yeah.
right? For
Yeah.
me, it's early to mid 70s, tops. For you, Joe, it's late 70s, early 80s tops. That's our reference point for vintage. Why doesn't vintage move? Like, if we're going to attract the next generation of collectors, how can we tell them what they have is modern when it's 30 years old,
Right.
And so I kind of changed my tune, and now I always say modern is tomorrow's vintage. That's what I say, because everything that's being put out today, a lot of us don't really like it, and it's it's different model and expensive. But if the 90s taught us anything, it's that even in an era of overproduction and just incredible glut, there are gems, right? Like we see stuff in VFC that people post, like sets I didn't even know existed, that are rare and hard to find, and cards that are hard to find. And I'm just like, wow, I didn't even know this stuff existed, because I just said, that stuff's all crap, right? It's all junk. And so I added a modern football category because so many people wanted to talk about more modern things. I don't like the name because, some of that stuff's 30 years old. That's not modern. But also I wanted to also get the average age of VFC down, right? If this thing's going to survive and thrive for, the next 100 years, which, that's my plan. My plan is this thing's around forever. Now it'll be in some other format because, the internet and all this stuff is going to completely morph and change. But I want this to be the archive for all things football, hobby, and football history, ultimately. And that's the reason we're storing every single thing. Nothing falls off a cliff and disappears on VFC. That's another difference with some of the Facebook groups and other groups, is everything is archived. Steve and I have worked really hard to put infrastructure in place to maintain everything, make sure we don't run out of space, make sure the images stay around, because you need images, because I want this to be an archive for the long term. And that means we have to get younger collectors into this group, because we're all going to age out, right?
Yeah.
At some point, and I need the next generation, stepping up, right?
Jeff, when can we expect to start seeing sponsors on the landing page, like a PSA or a
No.
When are you going to start doing interviews with badges on you, like a NASCAR driver?
I've had so many people ask about that. Auction houses, dealers.
Oh.
Yes, absolutely.
And be serious and
send them over to GG, because I could use a few advertisements.
Yeah. Anyway,
to survive.
no, that's not the goal. It's not the goal. We don't need that as members. We don't need people harassing us and whatever. The only sponsor we have, and you all know, and I gave him a shout out, was for the pizza dinner, because that's pretty expensive, right?
Yeah.
We don't want anybody that comes I don't want anybody not to come because they can't afford to come, right?
Yeah.
You would think most people that go there, to the National can probably afford a dinner, but hey, I'm not judging how people spend their money.
Yeah.
So my thought was, the first couple of years we took donations and we kind of worked it. And then we had enough in the kitty, because once in a while, to pay the website fees, I'll run a donation program. I call it the Cold Stone Creamery approach, because I do like it, love it, gotta have it. Like it's $5, love it's $10, gotta have it's 25. And people are, they can give what they want or not give it all. We've had people not give it all. We've had people give way more than that. Whatever you want to do is great. That keeps the kitty alive, usually for a couple of years at least. but the pizza dinner was draining it because it's just a lot of outlay when we start getting 20, 30 people showing up at a dinner. And so, Collectors Connection approached and said, hey, we know it costs you some money. Would you be at all interested in a sponsor for the dinner? And I was like, yes, actually, I would love a sponsor
pretty
for the
cool.
dinner.
Good call.
And yeah, and so they helped out tremendously, and that's worth it. But I don't want ads on the site. I don't want people, wanting names and email addresses of members and trying to sell them stuff. And we have people that run auction houses on VFC. We have people that are dealers. You'll notice they don't hawk their wares, right? Because I make it real clear. Josh Leland, Josh was a member before he passed away. And, I'm making all really clear to all of them that you're coming to VFC as a hobbyist or a researcher or an author. You're not coming as a dealer. Now,
although it is cool to hear their side of the hobby. I mean, I think we're all
absolutely,
dealer operations.
Yes, and auction operations, right? And it's been great. Like people like Steve Galetta and others who give a great perspective from the other side. Because we always, we're always like, those gosh darn dealers, And then he's probably like, oh geez, I gotta fight this battle again. But they all know, they all know I'm totally cool if you run an auction house to post something that just says, hey, everybody, I just want to let you know this auction house open. Here's a link. Here's some pictures of some cool stuff. Just community service. I'm just letting you know, even if even like anybody else would have done that, right? For Heritage or for anybody. If a dealer wants to say, hey, I'm going to the Philly show and I'm going to set up and I'd love to see you, stop by the booth. No problem with that stuff. To me, that's part of the community and it's information the community wants. Right? But we don't want people hawking their wares on the site.
I just want to interject. We got about 13 minutes left, so let's move along a little.
Do it.
One other question, one other statement moreover. We all know, Net 54, when it started to go down the drain, when Leon, was appointed moderator and then just kind of kept the keys to the kingdom. I just want to note, I mean, it's been almost 6.5, 7 years. You're still in charge, and some of your, what you're just talking about. No advertising. I mean, that's a testament to the longevity of this. Is it hasn't swayed like that. It hasn't. Yeah, I mean, the Leon Lucky effect. As we call it. I think we all know what that means.
Yeah.
So another tip of the hat to you, JP.
Thank you.
So, Jeff, I have a question back what we had talked about a little. So where do you think we go from here as a group? What's your vision? We know we want to archive this way past when we're gone. We wanted to keep it as the voice of football memorabilia and history. What's next? What do you think?
Well, I alluded to a few of it. Is we got to make sure the archive stays pristine. And part of that's about images. It drives me nuts when I go to other sites and the images are all missing from really important threads. Steve, kudos to him. He's worked really hard. You all probably remember about 3 years into it, we got a complete surprise when we got up one morning and nobody could post any pictures. We were like, what? And we scrambled around and contacted the website company and found out that we had hit some magical limit for our plan how much space we could use for images. We're a very image heavy forum, because I tried really hard to make sure it was really easy to post images. Like, I don't want to pick on Net 54, but it's almost impossible to figure out how to post an image on that site. And particularly if you want it to stick around, right? Most people are doing it from some, image, picture, archive they have. And then so it's a link and then it moves or they switch. All the links break when you do that. You can't, if you're going to archive and maintain something, it's got to be uploaded and stored with the site.
Yeah.
Which a lot of the images on VFC are. You can use a link system. And Steve and I are actually working on a way to crawl that, pull those images in and save them so we don't have that problem going forward. But when we ran out of space, we had the choice of either paying, I don't know, 5 times what we were paying for more space, or
Mhm.
figuring out an alternative solution. And Steve and I put our heads together, and we, use not a lot of funds from VFC to buy 2 terabytes of cloud-based space that was, lifetime cost. And we moved, and Steve did the heavy lifting. He built a crawler that went through and took every image, reworked all the code for each post, and automatically stored and linked to
Wow.
images out in
Wow.
this
Wow.
cloud-based system.
That's
And,
impressive.
someday we will run out of our 2 terabytes, and we'll have to look at our next solution or a bigger solution. But those are the kind of things we're trying to set up for the long term.
I
so
didn't
that
know that.
stuff goes
Steve,
around.
I didn't know that. That's really cool of Steve to do.
Yep, Steve's awesome.
And
He's
that's
awesome.
how cool of him to do that and volunteer his time to do that, his expertise. So right on.
He's
Okay.
great. The other thing is, I'd love to add other content sites to I'm calling it the VFC ecosystem, right? And all that means is that over the last 6 years, there's been a couple of very valuable football sites that have disappeared. Like the person who was running it, just decided to hang it up. They didn't renew their plan, and all of that content went away.
Gone.
Just,
Yep. Yep.
that drives me nuts, because there was a lot of great content on some of those sites, and it's now gone. We've lost it. And so I'm on the prowl. Shout out to anybody out there. Anybody that has content-oriented sites that want to preserve them, I would love to figure out a way for VFC to take over those sites or incorporate those sites or somehow maintain and make sure that information doesn't go away. That's a goal of mine. I'd like to build the VFC ecosystem and provide that as an additional service to the members, and probably a service to the whole community, by keeping some of those things away, not letting them disappear on us. Because I think that's just important, right? So that's another thing I'm working on. I already mentioned younger collectors. So I've started, I think much to my son's chagrin, as I stumble around on Instagram, I've started posting a lot more on Facebook, and just recently on Instagram. And my son Matt, who's a VFC member, obviously he's pretty into the hobby at this point. He was like, at the holidays, he was like, "Dad, we got to talk about your Instagram." It's like an intervention. He was like, "I don't think you know what you're doing." And I was like, "I know I don't know what I'm doing." And he walked me through and like helped me figure out how to actually post pictures that showed up and weren't like cropped down to I was doing it all wrong. I just didn't understand how it worked. But one is to just get more information out there about the hobby. So I'm using Facebook and Instagram and places where the younger people live. But thinly disguised, I'm trolling for members. That's what I'm doing. I'm looking for people that are posting a lot about football, and I'm instant messaging them and saying, "Hey, I don't know if you'd be interested. We have this cool forum. If you're interested, I can share some info." And we've picked up some members recently. Some of those, younger members at VFC have come off of Instagram. They've come off of Facebook. That's just an outreach program that I started in the last couple of years, just to start driving younger people into the hobby and opening their eyes about, the history of the game, which, to your point, Bob, they don't know a lot about, right?
Right.
But some
right.
of them are very eager to learn. And some of them are quickly becoming competitors, right? There's a couple on VFC that are beating me out for stuff now. And I'm like, gosh, darn it. But
Who invited these guys?
I'm also like, good for you, right? Like, yay, you're in it now, right? That's
Well,
what
I think for the hobby to survive, and I've said this numerous times, individuals like myself getting older, I want to move certain parts of my collection.
Sure.
And I also want an endpoint for my collection too, so that, when I do want to get rid of it,
Absolutely.
someone's
Yep.
competent enough to take it over. I don't want it to go to, ABC auction house and say, "Oh, I don't know what this stuff is. Let me just slab it and get it out on the hobby." I mean, it has some meaning. And I think that's the way I know you guys understand that, but we have to communicate that to the hobby itself. There's a lot of meaningful memorabilia that is totally misunderstood in the hobby, or not understood in the hobby.
No doubt.
And, really, again, it's a constant teaching effort on the part of the hobby.
Yeah.
That's what I really believe. And seeing some of the prices for some stuff that I really think should be 4 or 5 times the amount being sold on eBay, for example.
Mhm.
It's sad. I mean, I
Yeah.
really feel bad for the
It
people
is
selling,
bad.
you know?
Yep.
So it's
Yeah, it
problematic.
is bad.
All right, we got about 4 minutes left. Real quick, just a shout out Sports History Network. Listening to our podcast, check them out. There's a lot of different football podcasts on Sports History Network. Make sure you check them out at sportshistorynetwork.com. Jeff, in 2 minutes, biggest pickup you've had since we last talked to you.
Oh yeah. All right. I'm gonna share real quick and show you
Oh.
one thing. And this was my newest Thorpe postcard
Oh,
that I
Wow.
picked up. Now
Wow.
his face is partially obscured. It was actually an RMY. You all know that auction.
mhm.
And I was not convinced it was Thorpe. I was like, I'm looking around his leg, like, is that really him? Are you sure? And I actually pinged RMY, said, what's your proof of this, right? And though it's a small world, they pointed me to a VFCer who said this VFCer, someone you all know well, has verified this, has a photo of this, and it's designated as its Thorpe at Carlisle.
Wow.
And of course, I called them and they said, yep, I have a picture, came out of this book. I talked to this other collector. We put our heads together. We are really very certain that this is Jim Thorpe. And I was like, well, that's good enough for me. I mean, you guys know your stuff. So, that was probably my best pickup.
Good for you. That's
in the
cool.
last,
Cool pickup.
so
That's great.
yeah, it's nice postcard. It's in great shape too.
And
to
I'll tell
collect.
you, right now, I really believe postcards and photos and team photos and player photos are so overlooked
Yeah,
from roughly now, I believe, from the 70s back.
yeah,
I mean, they are just
no
there
doubt.
for the taking. There for the taking.
Yep, they definitely are. And you mentioned Pottsville Maroons. I don't think I have a picture handy, but you all might saw it on VFC. Was a 1916 photo of the Evansville Lithuanian Knights, the Wilkes-Barre team that Tony Latone from the Maroons was on, with picture of Tony on it, and what we think is his brother, or John Wilkie thinks is his brother, standing next to him. I've talked to the Latone family. They don't have anything that old of their grandfather.
Oh my God.
Which is too bad, right? So they
awesome.
couldn't validate it, but it looks like a very young Tony Latone, which is totally cool.
Yeah.
Totally cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, we're down to 1 minute, Jeff. One last thought. My final question I've asked every guest: what's your advice for a beginning collector in football cards and/or football memorabilia?
Yeah, well, I would, most everybody says, collect what you love, which of course is the right answer. But I would say that you should find something in particular to start with, right? Like so many collectors just go out and they just go in all directions and they don't know. Figure out what you really like and what you really want to focus on. You can always change your mind later, but start somewhere. Like whether it's your childhood sets or it's matchbooks or it's programs, do a little bit of a search around and understand what's out there and available in the era and pick something out and go for it. You can always sell it and change direction later. So
that's great. Well, we're out of time. I knew we were going to run over. Incredible history tonight of VFC. I am honored to be one of the first members of the group. I hope I can last another 20, 30, 40 years.
Absolutely.
And be a member. And as I try to type one letter at a time, getting something out when I'm in my 90s. But all kidding aside, I do appreciate the what you do. It's really a hobby, and we'll go forward. We'll continue to be strong. Real quick, I will be out at the National, God willing, if my air flight lands in time in Chicago.
Nice.
I'm coming in the afternoon. I'm going to check into the hotel, freshen up. I will be at the dinner for the first time in a long time.
Outstanding.
And then I'll be at the show hopefully Friday and Saturday walking around. Then I'm going to head home on Sunday.
Nice.
So
awesome.
I'll be there.
Be good to see you again, Bob.
I will try not to eat for a couple of days so I can eat more at the show. We're out of time.
Yeah.
Thanks for everybody being on.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. It was fun.
Take care.